Alrighty, folks. Howdy. Welcome back to the Suhu channel. This week, we are starting with something that is foundational to skincare. Not products, not routines, but a system that your skin already has and relies on every single day. Your skin barrier. A round of applause for the skin barrier. The skin barrier gets mentioned constantly in skincare. If you've been following our blogs and podcasts, you've heard us mention it a bunch. You hear phrases like repair your barrier or protect your barrier, but a lot of people never get a clear explanation of what your barrier really is. And what I find interesting is that most people only seem to care once the skin barrier is causing them problems. When skin starts stinging, when products that used to feel fine suddenly burn, when everything feels tight, dry, or reactive. So today, our goal is very simple. We want to meet our healthy skin barrier. We want to learn what it actually does, why it matters, and why you feel it so clearly when something is off. This is not about fixing your skin. We're just trying to understand it. So, Lydia, maybe you could start us off by explaining what we actually mean when we say skin barrier.
Yeah, totally. When we think about our skin barrier, right, it's equivalent to the stratum corneum, which you may have heard, or if you've ever taken like science class about the skin, like it's the outermost layer of your epidermis. And it's paper thin, like it's very, 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 very thin, but it's extremely important to protecting everything that's inside from everything that's outside. So you can think of this almost as like a spacesuit or a hazmat suit, but it's critical to protect against the environment. So when you think about the skin barrier, a lot of times you'll hear things like barrier creams or products that contain the word barrier in them. And really what that means is just these products are targeting that outermost layer, that stratum corneum, and they're really trying to either add in components that will help strengthen the skin barrier or essentially create a layer over the skin barrier to support the skin barrier as well. So today our focus is really going to be on thinking about the skin barrier as this like beautiful system of biology that comes together to really protect ourselves.
I really appreciate the analogy you brought up of the hazmat suit or space suit. Because, one thing that I really want to underline right away is that our skin barrier is not a coating. It's a living system. It's not something that you add or remove. It's a function of your skin. It's how the outermost layer of your skin is structured and how well it is able to do its job. What really helped me understand this is thinking about the barrier as a system that is constantly being maintained. Your skin is always losing water. We talked about that transepidermal water loss last week. It's always being exposed to the environment. And your barrier is the thing that is actually regulating that exchange. So when we talk about barrier health, we're really talking about how well your skin can hold on to moisture while keeping those irritants out. That already reframes a lot because it means that your barrier health is dynamic. It's changing with weather, stress, routine, and environment. It's not existing in this permanent state that you achieve once. Lydia, I was hoping maybe you could zoom us in on that stratum corneum and give us a bit of an idea of like what this living system is doing or what it is.
Yes, I would love to. So, if you really zoom in on your skin, right? Like we're talking now at the cellular and even beneath that level. So, like at the microscopic protein level, right? You can think of the skin almost as like this brick wall with bricks and mortar. And the bricks in our skin barrier would be our corneocytes, which are essentially flattened, dead skin cells. But just because they're dead doesn't mean they are not incredibly important. These dead skin cells are filled with keratin, and they also have these natural moisturizing factors. And the combination of the keratin and the NMS basically provide the structural strength of your skin. And those natural moisturizing factors are what allows your barrier to still contain water. And then if those cells are the brick, you can imagine that what connects the cells together is the mortar, and that's your intercellular matrix. And really, what that is it's a lipid layer that holds all the cells together. And it's composed of about 50% ceramides, 20%, 25% cholesterol, and 15% free fatty acids. And really, what you want to take away from that is you've probably heard of a lot of different skincare products with those ingredients. And so now you can start to put together that some of those products that contain these things like ceramides and cholesterol free fatty acids, they're trying to help support your mortar in your skin barrier. And when these ratios of these important ingredients in the mortar get thrown off, the barrier as a whole starts to weaken. And so the way you can think about this, right, is if your skin starts to become damaged, maybe you're overwashing it, you're scrubbing your skin too hard, you're using too much exfoliation, you're out in the cold and you're losing a lot of water or other things causing damage. Really, what's happening is your brick and mortar system is starting to get cracks, right? And the system is starting to become weak. And like a wall, the structural integrity is becoming unstable. And so that's what leads to, that's like the initial thing that starts to lead to deeper problems with the skin barrier. And, we were at the microscopic level, but then at the macroscopic level, I think you already said that like comes in burning and redness and scaling of your skin. These noticeable things have this microscopic beginning, right? Which is kind of cool to think about.
Yeah, that is really cool. You don't think of your skin as a structural system very often because you're just looking at this outside part of your body, but it's really
Yeah,
neat.
right.
Yeah, but it's really neat to learn about, these flattened corneocytes that are the bricks and this lipid bilayer that acts as the mortar that really holds all of this together. One of the reasons people overlook the barrier, I think, is because when it's healthy, it is almost invisible. Your skin feels comfortable and your products are all working and you're not really thinking about tightness or irritation. Everything just feels fine. But under the surface, your barrier is doing a lot of work. It's that regulating force in the exchange between your insides and your outsides. It's regulating water loss, it's protecting nerve endings, it's maintaining flexibility so skin can move without cracking or flaking. Um, it's acting like a gatekeeper. It's letting beneficial things in at controlled rates while keeping potential irritants out. So when you start to think about it this way, it starts to seem like a very, very important system. I'm hoping that maybe we could learn a little bit here about what a healthy barrier does when it's working.
Yeah, absolutely. Like with everything in health, when everything's working, we aren't really aware of it. And then it's like when something goes haywire, it's suddenly, really noticeable, right? And so that's why it's so important to proactively protect your skin. And you can do that with super simple skin routines, right? But like keeping our skin healthy, so important for just our overall health and well-being. So yeah, we can talk about a healthy skin barrier. Really, like the way you want to think about this is there's a few things going on your skin that are all kind of managed at the skin barrier level. And so the first one we kind of mentioned already is this trans epidermal water loss. And this is just the passive evaporation of water from your body into the outside environment. And this is happening throughout the day, right? And a healthy barrier is minimizing this. And that is, exacerbated sometimes when we change environments, if we're going into the AC or the heat or, if it's cold outside. But in general, if your skin barrier is healthy, even in slightly extremer conditions, your skin should do a good job at minimizing this water loss. It's really when your skin barrier starts to become damaged that you see this worsening. And then the other thing that people don't always think about is your skin is slightly acidic and it really likes being slightly acidic. And if you have a pH scale in your mind, like 7 is really in the middle, and that's a pH of water. And that's neutral. And then if you go to higher pH, higher numbers, you get more basic, and lower pH, you get more acidic. And so skin is around 4.5 to 5.5. And actually, a lot of skincare products should be pH adjusted to this, depending on the purpose of the product, right? So we should be maintaining this like slightly acidic skin. And the reason for that is, well, the most important reason is really you're starting to inhibit bacterial growth. And so this is like a protective acidity, essentially to keep your skin quote unquote clean. You have bacteria all over your body. So don't think that like this is like your entire body's covered in bacteria. But what this acid mantle is called is able to do is it helps to inhibit like certain bacterial growth that when they grow too much, it can cause problems on your skin. And then the other thing that happens, right, and that we're kind of already talked about is this like shedding of dead skin cells. And this is called desquamation. And really, basically, when you're thinking about this, your healthy skin should be shedding evenly across your body. It shouldn't be flaking. It shouldn't be like red and irritated because it's like so dry that it's cracking and like coming off, right? Your healthy skin should just be like shedding evenly. And yeah, that's kind of the three main functions that I really want to bring up. When your barrier is healthy, like Yorick said, it's boring. You don't feel it, but it's really doing these like important jobs. It's really keeping that water in, and then it's maintaining a healthy barrier against the outside world by, shedding evenly, by making sure that it's intact so things aren't getting in, and by keeping bacteria at bay from entering your skin as well. So yeah, that is a healthy barrier, and essentially you can just think of it as a waterproof seal. When it's working, your skin feels flexible, feels good, and you shouldn't be having any pain.
All right. So that's the boring part. What your healthy skin barrier is doing day to day when, nothing's going wrong. Let's talk about the exciting stuff now. I think this is the part that a lot of people are going to recognize when the barrier is compromised and you start feeling it immediately. Your skin feels tight after cleansing. Your products that were fine a month or two ago are stinging your face. You're seeing redness show up faster. Your breakouts are becoming more reactive. And it can feel sudden, like something changed just overnight. But usually, this barrier disruption is not one dramatic event, it's a cumulative process. A little too much cleansing, a little too much exfoliation, dry air, stress, cold weather. Over time, all these things are going to make the barrier a little less effective. And once that protection is weakened, everything else feels amplified. And so, Lydia, I was hoping maybe you could explain to us from a scientific angle what's going on there. Like, why are you feeling it so much when your barrier breaks?
Yeah, for sure. Really like to think about this, we need to zoom back in on our brick and mortar analogy. And what we need to think about is if we are in the cold or something in our environment is causing damage to our skin barrier, what's happening is that lipid mortar that's holding everything together and creating that beautiful seal is starting to get depleted. And as it gets depleted, you start to form little holes, literally little cracks in your skin barrier. And that creates a more permeable barrier. So that means irritants, environmental pollutants, skincare products, actives, all these things can penetrate deeper than they should into your skin. And things that normally might feel good, like lotion, might start to sting more. And the reason that that's happening is this increased permeability allows for things to penetrate deeper, and your body recognizes it and says, hey, that's not supposed to be here. And so it sends a bunch of immune cells to go and work their magic in that area to protect yourself from getting potentially some kind of disease, right? And so the immune cascade really results in this inflammation, this redness, this heat. And that is what causes, some of the pain in those areas because we're getting that inflammation and that immune response. And part of that pain is also coming from our nerves, which have now been potentially more exposed, literally by these physical holes in your brick and mortar system. So, yeah, you get a little bit more pain and you have this immune cascade. And it's great that your immune system is working, of course, but it does cause some of the things that you were talking about, that redness and that inflammation.
So going back to our analogy of our skin barrier as a spacesuit, if you get a prick in that spacesuit, you're going to start feeling it really quick. I think the next big question then would be, or my next big question is, how do I avoid getting that prick in my spacesuit? We're thinking when we bring it back to the skin barrier, it's usually about doing too much too often. Over cleansing is a big one, especially with hot water or strong cleaners. Over exfoliating is another. We can think about that with chemical exfoliants and physical exfoliants if you're using those beaded face washes. Even when the products themselves are not particularly strong, if you're just using them too often, that can do a lot of damage to your skin barrier. Using actives too frequently without giving your skin time to recover is another one. And then there are environmental stressors, cold air, low humidity, indoor heating, even friction from clothing or towels. If you're really vigorously brushing your face, I guess you could think of that again as exfoliation. What is important to say here is that many of these habits are actually encouraged by skincare culture. More steps, faster results, stronger treatments. So when someone's barrier is compromised, it's not because they failed. Oftentimes, it's because they followed advice that did not account for long-term skin health. So Lydia, I was hoping maybe here you could give us a more scientific basis for what we should avoid, what's going to damage our skin barrier.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the most basic thing, right, is now that you have this brick and mortar kind of analogy in your mind, you can apply it to your own sort of skincare process and just do a little quick check about like all your products and how you're using them. Some of the main tips that I have, just be really careful about cleansers, especially on your face. And honestly, like if you wash your hands a lot throughout the day, like as a chemist, I wash my hands a lot, like I'm wearing gloves, but then I take the gloves off and I wash them. And so in those scenarios, right, like I'm really like drying out my hands. So if you're using soap, right, on your face, your hands, really look for soaps that have pH adjustment to them. So you want to have a pH of around 4.5 to 5.5, right? Like that's the optimal uh pH of your skin. And so if you're working with things that are super basic or alkaline, that's really going to be disrupting your skin's natural acidity. And so just check your cleansers and make sure that you're using something that's adjusted for skin pH. And then in addition to that, like if you are using a cleanser specifically for your face and you want to look into other options, if you haven't tried like using an oil-based cleanser, I would check it out. Sometimes those are a little bit more gentle on your skin, but it will depend on your skin type. And then I also kind of want to touch on what you were talking about, Yorick, about like these physical beaded scrubs or like sugar scrubs and stuff. They could be awesome for like, your once a week exfoliation in the shower or something like that. But if your skin tends to be dry, and if it's in the winter and you already have noticed like your skin is adjusting a little bit, just be really careful about those physical scrubs. They literally start to pull away the bricks in that wall and they can open up like cracks and holes pretty quickly if you're overusing them. And then just be careful about like surfactants and things like that as well. Depending on what your body wash is made out of, if it's using like sodium lauryl sulfate, or other really strong surfactants. Those are great if you're trying to clean like grease off your body or something like that. But if you're just trying to like clean your skin and maintain the natural barrier, those surfactants can really strip away the natural oils. And that's like removing the mortar, which again starts to increase the permeability of your skin. And so really like just go through your routine and be like a little, just be analyze it a little bit and just think about like how many actives you're using, what's in your body wash, what's in your face cleanser, what are you washing your hands with. And yeah, I guess the final thing I would just touch on is, if you're using multiple additives, multiple actives in the day, like maybe you have retinol, you have vitamin C, maybe you have like an AHA or something like that, try not to mix those things all at once, right? It's just a lot on your skin at once. Use your retinol like at night, use your vitamin C in the morning. Really like decide what's the most important things for you and don't overkill on the actives. I see a lot of people on like TikTok and Instagram doing like their skincare routines, and it's just got like a lot of stuff. And you want to think about like supporting your skin, right? Which is like, not adding to the number of pollutants or things that are like disrupting your skin, right? And so there's a sweet balance, I think, for everybody on like what works for them, but just like be a little critical about the products that you're putting on your skin.
Absolutely. And I think that barrier first thinking is a really important shift that we can all do in skincare. Instead of asking, how do I fix this problem? The question becomes, how do I support my skin so it can regulate itself again? That usually means reducing intensity before adding anything new, gentler cleansing, fewer actives, more consistency, and patience. Barrier repair is not instant. Skin needs time to rebuild lipids and restore balance. All that damage that you're describing, it doesn't happen instantly and it can't be fixed instantly. What I like about this approach, though, is that it removes that sense of urgency. You're not fighting your skin, you're working with it. It's a system that synchronizes with your body and your routines. From a values perspective, it aligns really well with intentional care, less chasing, less consumption, more observation. It's almost like a mindfulness practice when you start to think about your skin as this system that's being affected by all these outside externalities. You can no longer assume, oh, my routine is working, my skin is the same as it was yesterday. You have to actually look at your face. You have to actually think about like, what am I feeling right now? So Lydia, from a chemist perspective, what can we be doing to support our skin barrier long term?
Yeah, it's easier than you might think. At the basis, right? Like what you're trying to do is give the skin barrier what it needs to thrive. And we've talked about what the skin barrier is composed of. It's, you know, a beautiful protective wall with this brick and mortar composition. And so when you think of supporting the skin barrier, you want to look for things that hydrate it and also mimic the actual components of the skin barrier itself, right? And so you can think of like hydrating lotion that maybe contains ceramides and fatty acids and cholesterol. One of the oils that we like to work with a lot is jojoba, because that's actually a wax that really mimics your natural oil composition on your body. And so it's a beautiful, like, biomimetic to use. And then the other thing, other than like hydrating and supporting, you want to use products that create like a layer of protection on the outside of your skin. And those are called occlusives. And if you're like going skiing or something, or you're like outside doing work in the winter, like, maybe use Vaseline or something like that, but a really natural, beautiful product that you can use that's like pretty accessible is like shea butter. That's a really strong occlusive, and you can just like put that over your skin during the day, and it will really help to physically block water loss out of your skin. And then, yeah, it's super important just to like remember that your skin is a biological system. And so it takes time for your skin to actually turn over. And it takes about 28 days on average, a little flexibility around that for a complete turnover cycle. And what that means is like if you have problems today on your skin, do everything to protect it and handle it well, it's still going to take almost a month, right, to like really see the change. So my suggestion is to not start switching out your products like every couple days if something's not working. Give yourself the full 28 days of recovery, and really like don't overdo your actives during that time. Like make sure you're using an occlusive if you're going outside, but be really gentle because it takes that full process to heal. And yeah, I think overall, just like from a product perspective, we have a beautiful podcast that goes over like skincare labels and stuff. So if you're like interested in learning more about like how to pick the right products, I would go watch that episode because that's a whole thing in and of itself. But yeah, be careful, read the labels, make sure you know what you're putting on your skin.
So healthy barrier function isn't just about avoiding that irritation. If it's going to take us about 28 days to see any changes in our skincare, then I think it's important that we reframe that. It's about becoming more resilient. We're looking for skin that can handle these seasonal changes, handle the stress, the occasional mistakes without spiraling into catastrophe. So like when your barrier is supported, your skin recovers faster and it tolerates more and it just feels easier to live in. So how do we go about building our skin into something that has that resilience?
Yeah. So, like, really, what our body does so beautifully is homeostasis across a lot of different systems. And the skin is no different to that. If there's a stressor on the outside or potentially on the inside, your skin works as a system to come back to baseline. And what we really want to do, right, is we want to increase the window of stress tolerance. So, basically, if you go outside and you go skiing, that's a stressor. It doesn't cause your skin to become damaged, right? Like your skin is able to tolerate that level of stress. And that's what comes from the support that we give our skin barrier. And I also want to say, like, this isn't just from like a product standpoint either. It has a lot to do with like your nutrition as well. So like eating your skincare is a big thing to like just maintain the health of the cells as they start to travel through, your epidermis to that stratum. So really like building this resilience into your body is coming, not just from the products, but also from how we treat our internal systems. Building in these levels of support into your skincare is really going to allow yourself to thrive with healthy skin for a longer period of time throughout your life. The main thing to take away from this, listen to your body, support your body, and know that your body is smart. It's doing its job, and we're just here to support it and to use tools in a way that like enables our skin system to thrive.
Well, thank you, Lydia, for all of that. For me, if there's one takeaway from this conversation, it's this: your skin barrier is not something to control or overpower. It's something to support. It's a member of your team. When your skin feels uncomfortable, that discomfort is information, not a failure. If you want to go deeper right now, we have a full blog post on what a healthy skin barrier actually does and why you feel it when it breaks. As always, leave your questions in the comments and subscribe for more calm, science-forward conversations about skincare. Thanks for being here.